Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Karine Jean-Pierre has returned from her respite, and we're so happy to have the White House spokeswoman back and on camera fielding softballs from CNN so that she can offer the big guys talking points on things like border security, which she dutifully did yesterday with the same blame rap that you heard in 2023.
So here's my response. It is shameful that a Republican governor, Governor Abbott in Texas, is using migrants as a political stunt. That's what he's been doing.
So you're referring to the busing of migrants to northern cities?
Absolutely. And the busing of migrants, the putting them on flights, it is shameful that that is occurring. And instead of, if the governor really, truly wants to deal with this issue, he should talk to the senators in his state and actually ask them to work with us. Look, what we're seeing right now is negotiations happening on the Senate side to talk about how do we come up with a bipartisan agreement to deal with border security. There's a reason why the president put that in his emergency ask, right, in the National Security Supplemental ask, because he thought it was incredibly important. In a couple of weeks, we're about to hit 3 years since the president put forward an immigration comprehensive legislation, put that forward to Congress. Nothing was done on it. We believe a very productive conversation in Congress with senators on how do we move forward in a bipartisan agreement to deal with the border security. That is important. Now, what we hope is that when Congress gets back, we'll be able to act and get these things moving forward so we can deal with this issue.
Comprehensive immigration reform, right? That's the same old playbook, the same old blame rap from, these recalcitrant Republicans, and we want to do things in a bipartisan way. We have to have comprehensive immigration reform in order to do anything. So we do everything or we do nothing. There's no in between, which is their way of forestalling having to do anything. I mean, it's just a exercise in finger pointing. There is no real interest in changing policy because if there were, the president could do it unilaterally. If there were an issue, if there were any interest in stemming the tide of illegal immigrants flowing into this country, the president could do it unilaterally. He doesn't want to. Simple as that. For more on all this, we're pleased to be joined by Bryan Steil. Of course, he's a congressman from just north of the Cheddar Curtain in Kenosha, 1st District of Wisconsin, and he is down at the border, part of the congressional delegation visiting Eagle Pass, Texas, to see what's happening on the ground there. Bryan, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. We are on the way right now down to Eagle Pass in the U.S.-Mexico border, where it's really ground zero of the disastrous policies of this Biden administration.
But, I saw a tweet from Speaker Johnson, Mike Johnson, Eagle Pass over the last, several days and weeks and months that has been well documented by Bill Benlugan at Fox News and others. A lot of citizen journalists down there, too, speaking to migrants and so forth. And then the picture that he juxtaposed those pictures to, Speaker Johnson did, was a picture of an empty field where it seems like Border Patrol has been told, because members of Congress are coming down, clear the area and put them somewhere else.
Well, we spoke last night to members of the U.S. Border Patrol on this exact topic. And what it shows you is that there are policies that matter that can turn the spigot on and off. And so what we need to do is actually force this administration to turn the spigot off for good. And you do that by core changes in policies, ending catch and release. You got to end the exploitation of the parole authority. You got to reinstate remain in Mexico. You got to allow expedited removal of illegal immigrants who come across the border, and you got to immediately start reconstruction of the border wall. And so what we continue to see is the Biden administration playing games, kind of pulling away the football like Lucy would do. And what we need to do is instead, once and for all, secure the border. There's policies that can do that. And the fact that this administration got everybody cleared out of Eagle Pass before members of Congress came down prove that policies matter, and there is a path to secure the border. It's just the administration refuses to do it.
Well, it's just so comical. I mean, who do they think they're fooling? I mean, it's like we've been watching this for weeks on end. We know what the numbers are. ICE just released its fiscal year 2023 report that we're topping 6 million people in this country illegally, doubling the number that was documented under the previous president. And they move a few hundred or a few thousand or redirect them to another entry point along the southern border, and there's no problem here. That's what we're supposed to conclude.
Well, no, exactly right. But what it proves, if anything, is that policies matter, and when you put in place policies to secure the border, you can actually do it. And so what clearly occurred is they cleared out a huge number of individuals at Eagle Pass. And again, we saw as recently as just a couple of days ago, 355 illegal immigrants fly from San Antonio, which is about 2 hours north of Eagle Pass, fly to the Rockford International Airport, about 20 miles south of Beloit, Wisconsin, where my congressional district is. This is an issue that actually has a solution. It's going to be forcing the administration to implement the policies to actually truly secure the border.
Well, what do you hope to accomplish by going down there with you and the other congressional members?
Well, I think you got two things at the same time. One, I've been down to the border before. This is not my first trip, but it's another opportunity to have conversations with those men and women who are actually on the front lines, the men and women of the Border Patrol, as well as local sheriffs who are doing more and more of the work. The second is to bring the attention of the American people to understand how significant the problems are at the border, why the policies of this administration are disastrous. And as we all know, it's not just impacting states like Texas, it's impacting Illinois, Wisconsin, and cities and communities all across the country. And so at the end of the day, the goal here is to focus the national attention on this issue so we can force the Biden administration to change course and truly secure the border.
How do you and House Republicans respond to Karine Jean-Pierre's latest iteration of the blame game and the whole we got to come together and get bipartisan agreement on comprehensive immigration reform? You know, these phrases that have been thrown around literally for generations that don't really mean anything. Certainly don't mean anything specific, which is part of the point. And you know, these productive conversations the White House is allegedly engaged in with members of the Senate. What's your handle on all of that, and how House Republicans are going to treat what you're hearing from the White House?
Well, I think what should be pretty clear to people is that we need to first and foremost solve the broken security problem at the U.S.-Mexico border before we even begin a conversation on broader immigration reform. And to do that, the House Republicans passed what we call H.R. 2. It's our comprehensive immigration reform package that truly allows us to secure the border. And again, it's policies such as ending catch and release. You got to end the exploitation of our parole system. You got to re-implement a Remain in Mexico policy. You got to expedite removal of individuals who illegally enter the United States. The administration wants everybody to focus on anything but the policies that will actually truly secure the border. House Republicans passed now over 6 months ago, H.R. 2, our bill that truly secures the border. Senators like Chuck Schumer in particular are refusing to bring that legislation forward, and we need to put pressure and get the American people to understand that this bill should be moving through the Senate and signed by the president so we can force the president's hand to secure the border, because the president is more than happy to have 300,000 illegal immigrants a month coming into the United States. It's the reason he continues the reckless policies that he does.
And they're doing this to build their base, though, right? To sign up more people as Democrats eventually?
I mean, it's hard to figure out what this administration is even trying to do, but at the end of the day, they are completely looking the other way as thousands and thousands of individuals come across the border. This is human trafficking. This impacts drug and fentanyl trafficking, and it's a disastrous policy for them to have.
And House Republicans are not going to be bought off with money under the guise of more resources to the border, which is what Biden's trying to sell.
Well, this is why we put forward H.R. 2. I mean, you do need to dramatically begin construction of the border wall. You need to fund Border Patrol, but it's also underlying policies like ending catch and release, actually having a parole system that works, meaning you don't just parole everyone across the board. You put in place a Remain in Mexico policy, telling people that want to have an asylum claim reviewed to stay in your home country while that is being reviewed. And so it is not just money to secure the border. That's a piece of it. But you also have to change the underlying policies that relates to asylum to truly be successful in securing the border.
But here's the thing. So, I mean, all this putting pressure on and prompting the administration to act or the Senate to act consistent with what House Republicans have outlined. What is the House Republican caucus willing to do to force this action? And I know I've put this to you before, but I'll put it to you again because it seems to me it has to be part of the conversation. Are you willing to say we will not fund anything? We have the power of the purse. We are not supporting funding for any aspect of government until this is addressed, until the border policy changes that you outlined are implemented so that we stem the tide and we then buy the space to have the larger conversation about what everybody thinks constitutes comprehensive immigration reform. Are you willing to turn off the spigot in order to force this a national moment, frankly, on this issue?
The power of the purse is about the one leverage point we have against the Biden administration. We're going to come up against another deadline where funding will lapse in about 2 weeks. This is our opportunity to focus the national attention on the issue, to force the Biden administration to change course. We've been pretty clear in the House that we need to see that before we move forward with funding. Speaker Johnson bringing over 50 members of Congress to the border to focus our attention on this issue, I think puts that front and center.
Bryan Steil, Republican congressman from Wisconsin's 1st. They're in the Kenosha area. Bryan, thanks as always, and we look forward to hearing what you see while you're down there in Eagle Pass. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is Mark Curran. For over 30 years as a prosecutor and a sheriff, I've spent my entire career fighting for the injured and most vulnerable. And I continue those efforts now as a trial lawyer. Many of the lawyers I face in the courtroom today are on the side of the abortion industry, as well as many other intrinsic evils. Martindale-Hubbell, the agency that rates attorneys, has given me the highest rating for both ethics and ability. I'm a former county, state, and federal prosecutor, as well as a 3-term sheriff. I'm also the host of the popular program Cross-Examination on Catholic Radio. You want a trial lawyer with the highest credentials and ability who will not support the evil agenda destroying America, then call me at 847-721-3189 or go to markcurranlaw.com. That's Mark Curran, C-U-R-R-A-N, law.com.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, Doctors Economos, Gavalis, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now. Along with general dentistry, Best Dental Group is a multidisciplined practice with an orthodontist, periodontist, and prosthetic specialists on site. They use the newest